Matt Weber here with Fairway Independent Mortgage. In this video, I'm going to be talking about temporary buydowns. I'm going to be talking about what they are, how they work, and this video is for anybody. It's for buyers, sellers, real estate agents, or anyone that wants to understand what this product is and why it's important. I'm also going to be going over the calculator that I made on how they work because it's going to help explain the numbers. Now, I put key points in the video, so if you want to skip through all this stuff, go right to the calculator, go ahead and do so. You'll see that in the clip. As I'm filming this, we're currently in a higher rate environment and we're in a really interesting market. We're in a market where buyers are on the fence, they want to buy, but with rates so high, they're really unsure of it. And then we've got sellers on the other side that are motivated. So if someone's selling their house right now, they are motivated to get out of that house. And so how we connect that is basically having the seller help with the financing for the buyer. And that's through seller concessions. So on a lot of our contracts, we're seeing 2, 3, 4, 5% concessions. And that's brought up this whole different world of products. Now, seller concessions can be used towards closing costs, prepaids, points, buydowns, but what the seller cannot do is give the buyer cash. They can't give them any overage back at closing. It has to go towards closing costs. And that's where these buydowns really come into place. Now, with that being limited, there's only 2 places seller concessions can go after they cover closing costs. And that's in points, in a permanent buydown, or in a temporary buydown. So with that being said, I'm going to go over some pros and some cons of the temporary buydown. The first pro is you avoid leaving money on the table. With a permanent buydown, you pay points. You pay the bank for a permanently lower interest rate. So for that life of that loan, you'll have that same interest rate, which is lower than market. Now in a temporary buydown, you actually fund an account that's going to make payments on your behalf to make it seem like your payment's lower for the first year and the second year on, say, a 2-1 buydown. Now there's a refundable aspect to it. And I'll get to that later, but basically no matter what, you won't leave money on the table this way. The second is you can use more seller concessions and get a full benefit from them. So if you get excessive seller concessions like 4 or 5 or 6%, you can actually do a temporary buydown, and then if there's anything beyond closing costs and a temporary buydown, you can also do a permanent buydown, which will buy down the note rate or the original loan on that temporary buydown. And the third pro is there's no additional work for the buyer or the seller. This is not an extra program, it's an add-on to a regular mortgage. Now, as far as the cons go, the first con is it's only on fixed mortgages. We can't do it on adjustable rate mortgages, and sometimes, depending on the day, those adjustable rate mortgages are in a really good spot. So you kind of have to weigh that out when you're looking at options. The second con is when you do finish the term of that temporary buydown, let's just say it's a 2-1 buydown where it's 2% lower the first year, 1% lower the second year. On that third year, you will go back to the market rate you initially locked at. Third con is it really only makes sense if the seller's funding it. If you were to pay this as a buyer, what you'd basically be doing is putting your funds in an escrow account, your own money in an escrow account that's going to make payments on your behalf, but there's no added benefit to that. So you might as well just keep that money in the bank. Now for the fun part, how do they work? How are they structured? The seller funds an account that's going to make payments on your behalf. This is what's called an escrow account. So think just the same as your taxes, your insurance. This is an account that's set aside with money in it, and in this case, the money in this account that's funded by the seller is going to make partial payments right alongside your regular mortgage. So every month, it's going to distribute whatever amount that is. First year on a 2-1 buydown would be 2% less. Next year would be 1% less. So you have a regular 30-year fix running as it regularly would, and then this account that's going in before your payment and subsidizing that. So when you get your initial payment, it's going to seem like it's 2% less the first year and 1% less the second year. But that money is yours. Now that's the real gold of the temporary buydown, is it sits in an escrow account that's yours. So if you were to sell or if you were to refinance, that amount left in that account that has not made payments yet, that gets refunded towards your principal balance. So you owe that much less on your mortgage. So what happens at closing is on the settlement statement, you'll see line items for your regular closing costs, your down payment, and then you'll see this big item for temporary buydown. What happens is the seller concessions go towards that, it funds that account, and then it goes to the mortgage servicer. It's going to sit in that account, and that's where it's going to make payments on your behalf. So you don't have to do anything with it. This automatically happens, and you just get a lower bill for the first 2 years. Now for that escrow account, it's only refunded towards your principal balance. So you will owe that much less on your mortgage. So if you're refinancing, what you can do in that case is either have an overall lower mortgage, or you can wrap the closing costs in and use those funds to buy points to get the rate even lower. And then if you're selling, on the net sheet, your mortgage is going to be that much less. Now I'm going to go into how the calculator works and walk you through step by step how to use it. For this example, we're going to do a conventional loan with 5% down on a $500,000 purchase price. Now keep in mind, I made this thing from scratch, so it's not the prettiest. But all you have to do is enter the highlighted fields and it will populate all the rest of the numbers and you'll completely understand how to do this. Okay, so as I mentioned, just enter the highlighted fields. We're going to do $500,000 for the purchase price, and then $25,000 is 5% down. For the interest rate, if you're doing this on a PC, you'll just put in this case, we're going to do 6.99% because it just hurts less than hearing 7%. So I'll do 0.0699, and that will populate there. And then taxes, we just use 0.62 to get that little estimate over there. So we'll use that, $3,100 a year. Insurance, we'll call that $1,000 a year. And then no points for this rate. Then we go over to the other side to compare a permanent buy down, and we're going to pick a random rate. Let's call it a 6.125 for 2.2 in cost of points. So I do 0.06125. That'll give me the rate there. And then 2.2 for the points charged. Okay, so now we have the breakdown. So if you go over to this column to the left, that's going to show us what the full PITI payment looks like on the temporary buy down. So the note rate is the actual loan. This is the full-on term of the loan. That note rate is going to be at that 6.99%. So the highest this payment will ever get is going to be $36.92. And it's got taxes, insurance, and I even built in a mortgage insurance calculator. So these should be fairly accurate, maybe a little bit high. So again, highest it's ever going to be. Now we go into the first year. First year, it drops to $3,082 a month, and then second year, $3,380. And so when we compare these side by side, this is what the permanent buy down to is 6.125. It's at $3,421 a month. So when we're comparing these, what we're going to look at is that permanent buy down versus that temporary buy down and the cost for them. So all the breakdowns are down in here, and what we're looking at is that break even. So for the first 3.2 years, it's going to make more sense. You're going to save more money with that temporary buy down. And then if you go up here after 3.2 years, that's where this number comes into play, that $270 a month. That's where the savings between a 6.125 and a 6.99 come into play. After 3.2 years, you'll be paying $270 more than the temporary buy down. But you would, in that time, you could have refinanced, could have sold, whatever it might be. So that's a risk you obviously take with temporary versus permanent. Now, if you go up and to the right, you'll have the breakdown of closing costs. In this case, we're off by a few $100s, but you can see everything in here. Regular closing costs, about 1.25%. The 2-1 buy down cost is 2.2. And then over here, the permanent buy down is basically 2% because you're accounting for a loan amount that's going to be charging points, not the purchase price. That's why you see a discrepancy between 2.2 and 2.09. So very similar bottom lines, but you see a lot more savings up front in that temporary buy down. And then here's where it gets really cool. If you go down to that 2-1 buy down tab, this is where you see the refundable part of it. So it's going to just show you the monthly savings. So $610 a month the first year, $312 the second year. Obviously, from there on out, there's no savings because the buy down has run out. But let's just say, theoretically, you refinance in 10 months. So this is where you'd enter that. Now, if you're going to go past 12 months and go to the second year, you have to put 12 in here and then put the rest of it in the bottom. But in this case, let's do 10 months. So in 10 months, you will have spent $6,099, and then you will have to go towards your principal balance, $4,966. So not only did you save a bunch of money in that first 10 months, $610 a month in savings, but you also get $5,000 to go towards your refinance if you were to refinance. So you can look at that in a couple ways. You can look at that as just owing less on the mortgage, or you take that money and you put that towards permanently buying the rate down when rates are lower. So let's just say rates today are at about 7%, and then in 10 months, they're at 5.5%. Well, with that extra money, you might be able to buy it down into the 4s. Don't know because it's a moving target, but that's what you'd use those funds for, and then you get a win-win. And then we have the quick comparison. The quick comparison is going to really give you the numbers for what the bottom line looks like, down payment and closing costs, and then comparing these side by side. And then, yeah, you can see here, year 3+, it'd be $270 more a month. And then I put the max seller concessions for conventional loans in here so that you know not to go over that. This is kind of more for the real estate agent side to know not to ask for more than 3% if we can't use it. And then this shows you the 2-1 buy down cost is about 3.4%. The permanent is about 3.3. So you don't want to ask for more from the seller than that because you won't be able to use those funds. And then for a dollar amount quick comparison, I just put that down there. So obviously part of using this calculator is knowing where rates are at on each day. And the best thing to do is just reach out to me directly and check in because everyone's scenario is going to be slightly different. But if you're going to be looking on your own, I would recommend going to Mortgage News Daily because they're going to have the best idea of where rates are actually at. They're not running ads like other companies. In fact, what they're selling is a software that goes to us that we pay for a monthly subscription to. And so you're not going to get the cluttered rates where it's a really low rate, but then huge cost to it and some garbage lender. They're going to give you pretty accurate numbers for this. Now, as far as where points are at, where that gets you for the other comparison, again, you're going to want to go back to me for that. And if you have any questions on this, how to enter it, if you're not quite understanding it, just reach out to me directly. My cell phone's 480-270-0804, and I'm always happy to help answer questions. And obviously, please like and subscribe. I'm going to be doing more and more of this. I just really want to get the education piece out. We're in a market where it's very, very rate sensitive, and I think knowledge goes a very long ways. So I'm doing everything to get that out, share as much as possible, and be a resource. Thanks.